Gallup poll that just came out just this last month, where people reported their well-being, as you were mentioning. And it is true. There were three groups of people: the very religious, the moderate religious, and the non-religious. The very religious in America report, 69% of them report well-being in their life. They're great, right? The moderate religious report, 63% of them report that they have well-being in their life. That's not a big difference, but it's a difference. They're both around 2/3 of the population. Where do you think the non-religious fell in that survey? Where would you guess? Where would you guess the non-religious fell in reporting well-being? It just came out, so you might not have seen it. 65%. The non-religious fell in at 65. So 63, 65, 69% of Americans, religious or not, are reporting lives of well-being. So maybe that is statistically significant. Maybe there is a statistician would say, yeah, there's a difference there. But combine that with the fact that we know that Christians are over-reporting. Christians are not honest in these surveys. It throws your conclusions into doubt.
Mr. Curry will now get a second rebuttal round, 6 minutes.
All right, Dan. You have stated that while I've been able to cite peer-reviewed research conducted by university-based researchers, published in mainstream academic journals, that we should ignore that.
good that Christianity and Christians have done, but let's compare it with the evils that have been done. And on balance is what we're talking about. On balance, we have to say that the bad outweighs the good.
We're now to the cross-examination. Each speaker will get to ask 2 questions of their opponent, 1 minute for the questions, 2 minutes for the answer. It's been agreed that Dan will ask the first question and that Mr. Curry will ask the last.
Should a wife always submit graciously to her husband? Is that a good teaching?
No.
So you disagree with your own confession from your own church then?
I don't believe that the confession was meant to be a kind of universalistic and airtight way.
So you disagree with that statement in your own confession. It says, as the Bible says, it says very clearly in Ephesians, wives, submit yourselves to your husband, keep silent in church. If you want to learn anything, go home and learn from your husband. So you are happy to disagree with the basic teachings of Christianity because you as a modern day Christian have risen above that. Is that what you're saying? You're disagreeing with the Bible?
No, not at all.
Before you answer, Mr. Curry, Dan, I'm going to cut you off right there so he has time to answer so it doesn't turn into a debate.
Yeah, Dan, you're doing what you often do in debates. You are employing that same fundamentalist mentality that you had growing up, now in an atheistic context. Statements don't necessarily need to be taken in a rigidly wooden way. Statements can have a variety of kind of flexibility to it. While I would certainly say that, as a general rule, marriages are better when there is an element of leadership that's exercised by the husband. I recognize that that may be a controversial statement in this context. I do not believe, and I do not think that the SBC or even Scripture believes that that is meant to be taken as an inviolable rule, such that, for example, if a husband told his wife to blaspheme God and murder her children, she'd be seen as sinning if she chose not to follow the directive.
Okay, and I will remind the speakers, if you want to rebut their answer, you're free to do so in your closing statement. Now, Mr. Curry, a 1-minute question for Mr. Barker.
All right, Dan, you began by saying that the statistics I cited were not reliable. You then proceeded to say not only were they not reliable, but they actually were the opposite, and that we can know that somehow or other. How do you know that? I mean, it's one thing to say that statistics are unreliable, it's another thing to say that they are anti-reliable.
I did not say they were anti-reliable. I said that we have shown that there's a tendency for believers, for all human beings, to exaggerate to pollsters, to survey takers, on the phone or however it's being taken. There is that tendency, and we can't deny that. Statisticians and surveyors know that people, young people, underreport substance abuse, for example, because it's socially undesirable. So I wasn't saying that we can just plug that into the equation. What I'm saying is there are studies that show, and I have it here, I'll have to look it up, but actual research where the reports that people have given in surveys, that, for example, that 40% reported church attendance, actually don't match empirically with the real world. So you can have a study that says, here's what people report, right? But surveyors know that that actual reporting doesn't actually match the real world. It's either too high or too low in some way. So I was pointing out that empirical research showed that Christians were, in fact, doubling their report of church attendance, which means that if that holds, that it's only half that are reporting it. That means that on any given non-holiday weekend, 4 out of 5 Americans are not in church. Do you happen to know what percentage of your church tithes? No. I mean, it's just rhetorical. You probably don't. When they actually look at churches, look at the churches, the ones that they're allowed to look at, it's about 3%, even though 17% say they do. So I'm basing my conclusions on actual empirical data, not on survey data.
Dan Barker, 1-minute question for Mr. Curry.
Let me find my place here.
Before you do, I should apologize. I keep calling him Dan Barker, Mr. Curry. I know Dan, so it's force of habit, but I'll try to be better as a moderator.
I feel disrespected, you know.
Atheist, no moral compass.
I have to wait to respond.
Yeah, in your closing, please, Mr. Barker. Mr. Barker. Mr. Curry, you have one last question for Mr. Barker.
Yeah, Dan, you've mentioned that there's this doubling effect on reported church attendance and things like that. And you put it forward as if this was a problem for me and not for you. But how can that be the case if the implication of that is, if, according to surveys, attending church twice a week leads to a 7.6-year increase in lifespan, it seems that you're saying that it's a possibility only with once a week attendance.
Well, I did throw some question upon the church attendance and health studies, and I do have it here. It's a study out of Florida, which shows that people who are sick can't get to church. People who are less healthy, especially among the elderly, that skews the numbers. Obviously, if you're too sick to go to church, you're not going to be counted as a healthy churchgoer. So, in my way of thinking, you seem to be using the no true Scotsman fallacy. It's only the ones who are actually healthy that we're going to count. We're not going to count the ones who are not healthy, who don't show up in church. So it makes sense that people who live in a certain culture where they're likely to get up and go to any event, let's say, are going to be healthy people. So again, that doesn't touch on whether Christianity is true or not. And I guess during closing I will ask you, how do you connect the dots? How do you connect the dots between that and actual Christian teachings from the Bible?
All right. We'll now move into closing arguments, 6 minutes. The first will be Mr. Curry. Wherever you're most comfortable.
Well, I'm halfway here already. All right, at the end of this, I'd like to summarize some of the flow of our debate today. At the beginning, I stated that I wanted to lay out 5 ways in which Christianity is making the world a better place, ways in which the world is better with Christianity. And I mentioned health, I mentioned crime rates, I mentioned happiness, sex, and philanthropy. Now, in support of these claims, I presented data derived from scientific studies conducted by university-based experts and published in mainstream peer-reviewed academic journals. And while Dan has said quite a lot this afternoon, most of it wasn't really all that germane. Much of it was about a topic which is not the topic of today's debate, about the past as opposed to the present, and some of it was even factually inaccurate, as I've tried to point out on several occasions now. Now, Dan may be willing to look at the data that I've presented and to simply wave it away, to simply say, no, it can't be that way. Studies show 80 out of 100 times that Christian religiosity is connected to happiness. I don't buy it. Studies have shown that self-identified Christians claim to have better sex. I don't buy it. Studies claim that Christians are less criminal. I don't buy it. Now, of course, Dan is free to employ these arguments from personal incredulity all he likes, but they're kind of crummy as far as arguments go. As a result, my case still stands. Given that Dan has said very little that actually attacks the substance of what I've said, apart from conspiracy theories and kind of vague beliefs that Christians are over-reporting in ways that atheists aren't without really any data to support that conclusion, it does really seem that the world is better with Christianity. Much, much better. That people in the UK who are Christians are far less likely to be committing crimes is a wonderful thing. That the same thing is reflected in the United States is a wonderful thing. That Christians are more likely to be philanthropic is a wonderful thing. That people can live 7.6 years longer, apparently even going to church half of twice a week, just once a week, is a wonderful thing. These are all ways in which Christianity makes the world better. Now, Dan has also said that I have discussed here the statistics related to Christians and not necessarily the Bible, and he's frustrated by that. He wants to equate the Bible simpliciter, the Bible itself, with Christianity. Christianity is the Bible and vice versa. Now, there's a part of me as an evangelical Protestant that wants to give Dan a high five. Woo! Sola Scriptura! But I have to admit that while I see it to some extent that way, most Christians don't. Most Christians do not affirm sola scriptura. And so for Dan to try to approach this debate as if the Bible and Christianity are identical things is to miss the boat. say something about that topic here at the end. When we as human beings evaluate the truth claims of certain propositions, and those propositions are not obviously true or obviously false, our evaluations can be influenced by a variety of subtle factors. And a desire that the thing in question be true or not true can be one of those subtle factors. If we really, really, really want something to not be true, when we evaluate its truth, we can perhaps do so in ways that are prejudicial. We can set the evidence bar so high as to be unreasonable and essentially unmeetable. And if in time past, when you have considered the truth claims of Christianity, you felt that it was a bad thing, that the world was worse with Christianity, it may have been that you evaluated its truth claims in that prejudicial manner. If instead, now you have perhaps been disillusioned by this debate, if, unlike Dan, you are willing to defer to the peer-reviewed findings of social scientists at major universities throughout the world, and you are willing to see that Christianity does indeed positively correlate with positive things, perhaps not as the ultimate cause, but it's nevertheless being in the causal chain, perhaps it's time for you to reconsider those truth claims. Perhaps if you were to reevaluate the truth claims of Christianity, you would come now without the bias, without the animus, without the prejudice to different conclusions. Maybe not. Maybe you'll reevaluate them and you'll come to the exact same conclusion. Perhaps you'll come to conclude that in the end, even with it being really nice, Christianity is still false. So be it. But maybe not. Maybe you'll see it in a different light. Maybe you will come to the end of your investigations and you will conclude that instead it is more likely that Christianity is true than that it is false. And if that is the case, if you do ultimately come to that decision, reconsidering Christianity, then on behalf of the hundreds of millions of people in the U.S. and the couple of billion people worldwide who have chosen to live in the light of the gospel to embrace Christianity, allow me to invite you to join us. Take hold of that longer, happier, healthier, more philanthropic, less criminal, and sexier life that could be yours as a Christian. Thank you.
6-minute close for Mr. Barker.
People who are drunk will tell you they are happier when they're drunk than when they're not. They will, won't they? How many of you have been drunk and you've been happier when you're drunk? Therefore, should we all get drunk so we can be happy? Oh. That's what Eugene is asking you to do, to sacrifice your reason and your moral principles to embrace a brutal Bible that devalues women and devalues children and commits genocide and who says that his feet need to be kissed because he's the glorified master of all, and unless we worship on a certain day of the week, we all have to be stoned to death, and if you're gay, you have to have your blood upon you. Let's all just sacrifice our moral principles and our rational principles about whether God exists or not and say, hey, those people are happy people and they have better sex, so I guess I'm going to join them, right? So, if you want to do that, it's a free country. By the way, I finally found my list of studies here, and there's a whole bunch of peer-reviewed studies. Here's one of them, Kirk Hathaway and Penny Marler in Church Attendance Studies, a peer-reviewed study that showed that, in fact, Christians over-report on these surveys. And there's much more I could read here for that. That's where we're past that point in the break. But notice that what Eugene did not do is he did not connect any dots between the behavior of these people and the Christianity itself. He only quoted one Bible verse. Did you notice that? Whereas in my supposed anecdotes, I quoted a number of Bible verses to show to you that Christianity has caused harm within the world. So Christianity. If by Christianity you mean only that small group of healthy people who are honest in surveys, well, then there you go. But I think you're limiting your definition of Christianity. I don't know what you think about the Roman Catholics' position on birth control, for example. That is a huge blight to the world. I would say that the Vatican's position on birth control is a huge moral evil directly attributed to Christianity itself. So yeah, let's look at the pretty flowers. Wow, you have a great sex life. Wow, that's a beautiful flower within Christianity. I'm sure you're not going to invite me to your house to look at your garden, but don't just turn your head away from the social ills that your religion has created in the world. To my tribal ancestors, to indigenous peoples all over the place, to women's rights. Women are still making, what, 76 cents on the dollar? Because of Christian teaching, because of the revealed religion's teaching that women are second class. A woman should not submit graciously to her husband. She should not. That's a bad teaching. And I'm glad to see that you're waffling on your own statement. Your webpage says very clearly, a woman shall. And it quotes Bible verses to prove that. I'm glad to see that you're getting smarter than Jesus was, that you're getting, and kinder than Jesus was. So, yes, Christians have done very good things for the world. So have Jews and Muslims and Hindus and atheists. We've done good human things for the world in many ways. But on balance, if you look at the effects, and not just single out 5 little things where there's a possibly statistically significant improvement in one particular area or another, if you look at on balance over the entire history and in the entire breadth of Christianity, on balance it's an ugly garden. In Christianity, we don't need it. We can do without it. The world is better without Christianity.
All right, one more big round of applause for both of our presenters. We'll now move on to the Q&A. What I would ask people to do, if you have a question for Mr. Curry, please line up in this aisle. And if you have a question for Mr. Barker, please line up in this aisle. Looks like Dan's going to have an easy time of it. Share the mic, please. And if you two want to like shake hands or something, or a big sloppy kiss before we move on, then go nuts. All right.
First of all, I would like to thank you for coming here. You're very brave for being here, and we really do appreciate it. In any good debate, you have to weigh a cost-benefit analysis. And throughout your kind of contingencies, you stated a lot of benefits to Christianity, whereas Dan stated a lot of costs to Christianity. And as far as statistical numbers, yes, it may be